Rumiko Takahashi is known for writing some of the best manga out there. My Koku, Urusei Yatsura, Ranma Half, and Inuyasha are all great series. But that's not all she's written. You see, if you search her name up on the Viz Manga app and look at all her series, you'll find out that there are more series she's written. Now, of course, Mermaid Saga is a great short series, and she's bound to have other short stories as well. And Mao, while people don't know about it as much as her other works, it's the one she's currently writing. But I want to draw attention to that other series, the one below Ranma Half. Rin-ne. What is that series? Why is it a long series? Is it good? Well, I read this series over the past few months, and here's what I think of it. Rin-ne follows a girl named Sakura Mamiya who can see ghosts after being fed a candy from the astral world when she was younger. This causes her to see a boy in her class named Rin-ne Rokudo, who is a Shinigami that exercises spirits, aka help them pass on. Rin-ne hides himself through his cloak called a Haori, which can make him invisible to others. But Sakura sees him still, and through that interaction, both of them become friends and go on to exercise a bunch of spirits together, along with Rin-ne's black cat, Rokumon. Now, the way they exorcise spirits isn't like what you see in some of these modern horror movies like The Conjuring, where there are exorcists who tie the body down and force exorcise the spirit, shine a bunch of spiritual and religious stuff. These spirits take the form of their deceased body, who can only be seen by Shinigami like Rin-ne, people like Sakura, and other astral beings like demons or Damashigami, which are pretty much evil Shinigami. What Rin-ne and Sakura do is talk to these spirits, see what's keeping them bound in the living world, and try to get them into a position where they can get rid of that reason, and or get them in a position where they can peacefully pass on. While this may be a sad concept, the story doesn't portray it as something that's sad, but instead happy because the spirits can pass on with no regrets. There are a lot of things I like about this series. One of them is the amount of characters being focused on. There aren't so many characters that you forget some if you don't see them for a while, but there's enough so that there are different perspectives on certain events, and you don't see the same type of characters throughout the entire story, which can get boring. You got Rin-ne, the poor Shinigami trying to make money while living in a not so ideal living condition. Then you got Jumonji, who's in love with Sakura and exercises spirits, but in the traditional way described in most modern horror movies, and isn't an astral being. Then you got characters like the Shinigami Agha, who's in love with Rin-ne and is a spoiled rich girl. At the center of it all, you have Sakura, who's a human that can see ghosts and is probably the most normal out of all the characters. Another thing I also like about this series is the comedic moments. I like how there are moments that are funny dispersed throughout the series. It adds to the character and personality of the story as a whole. You have moments such as Rin-ne getting a lot of money in a chapter, but losing it all in the end for some stupid reason, making him bleed from his eyes. Rin-ne's grandmother giving him a noogie every time he calls her granny, probably because she doesn't like to be referred to as an old lady. And moments where Rin-ne's Sai repairers at the Crescent Moon Hall give Rin-ne's Sai some feature he doesn't want, and Rin-ne wants a refund. There are many moments like this that I'll guarantee to make you laugh. The last thing I want to talk about that I find good with this series is the level at which you can understand everything going on, and the afterlife system of the story. This series is very easy to understand, and you can pretty much understand the entire concept within the first chapter. This is good because readers don't have to focus on understanding the concept of the story, instead focus on progressing with it, an aspect that I don't see a lot of in most manga today. If it's your first time reading manga, this would be a good manga to start off with because it isn't too complicated to understand, and it's easy to follow and interesting to top it off. Though this will lead me into what I personally believe are the main cons of this story. The first main con is that it's a bit too generic. While this would be a good starting series for any up-and-coming author, this is Rumiko Takahashi we're talking about. She has written Inuyasha, Urusei Yatsura, My Koku, and Ranma Half before this one. Unlike those stories where each of them has their own unique aspect that separates each of them from each other, I find that Rin-ne doesn't have that. It seems to borrow aspects from some of those series, but doesn't try to make something of its own. This can be a good or bad depending on the reader. I personally enjoyed Urusei Yatsura because it was a comedic, episodic series with recurring characters, but it was set up like a sitcom, something that a lot of long-running manga don't do. I liked Ranma Half because the trait of the main character was swapping genders, something that's never been done before, and it had some development with the characters. And Inuyasha was like a full-on battle shonen series, having big arcs and a linear plotline, but it was very emotional, leaving it as a classic in anime and manga history. Rin-ne, however, isn't a series with one of these standout qualities. You could say that having the exorcisms be peaceful is one thing that stands out, and I could see why that can be a standout quality. But it's already a reoccurring trope in a lot of anime and manga, and I didn't see any unique spin on it. However, if this is your first manga, this won't bother you. Another thing I'm not a fan of with this series is the repetitiveness with some of the chapters. I see similar spirits mentioned in a lot of the chapters, and a lot of them don't feel unique. It sometimes feels like you're reading the same story over and over again as you progress with the chapters. You get the spirit that can't pass away because they forgot to tell their crush that they love them, and then you get the same thing many chapters later. If you're not pacing yourself with this series, you could get really bored with what's going on. And I felt that multiple times throughout the series. I wanted to find out what the ending was and look online for it, but I'm glad I didn't do that. But after rating this series, it's a pretty okay ending. But I won't say anything more due to spoilers. The actions with some of the characters feel repetitive too. I feel that this isn't usually a problem with Takahashi's works. Urusei Yatsura had a lot of repetitive moments, but it felt like that series put its own spin on a lot of them. But Rin-ne has the characters doing the same things, the spirits having similar behaviors, and a lot of the actions just feel recycled through most of the series. 398 chapters is a lot, and if you're reading this series with a go-go-go mindset, you won't be able to enjoy it fully. Regardless, Rin-ne is still a good series. In my original ranking video of Rumiko Takahashi's main works, I originally put this series at the bottom of Takahashi's main works, making it my least favorite out of her main works. Thanks for telling me Yashahime wasn't written by her. I found out that she just does the character design, so sorry about that. But after reading Rin-ne in full, I think it deserves to be moved up a spot, above Mao, but still in the lower tier of her works. Do I recommend you read this series? If you're someone who likes Takahashi's works and doesn't really expect much from her series and just wants to read more of her writing, then I would recommend this series, as it's mainly just Takahashi doing what she does best. If you're someone who's read Takahashi's works like Ranma Half and Urusei Yatsura and expect her to do something similar or better to those, chances are you won't find that story here. So I would read the first few chapters to see if you like it, and if you don't, it'll be mostly the same throughout the entire story, so you're safe to drop it if you feel like it's wasting your time. However, if you're new to Takahashi's works and don't have any expectations, this isn't a bad series to start off with, since you don't have anything to compare it to. Though, most of you probably won't know her based on this series, you'll probably hear about her through something like Inuyasha or Ranma Half. And with that, I'll give the series a 6 out of 10, pretty average, but still worth checking out if you have the time. That'll be it for this video. Have you read Rin-ne? What did you think of it? If you haven't read Rin-ne, are you inclined to read it after this review? What other Rumiko Takahashi works have you read? And if you enjoyed this video, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to my channel so you don't miss another video of mine. And until then, I'll see you on the next one.